Alright, it's time for a Writer's Wednesday video, and today I want to tell you about my short story I wrote for the anthology We're Not Home. It's a horror anthology put together by Cam Wolfe, including people from Booktube, Authortube, and Horrortube. Cam Wolfe just recently did a cover reveal. I'll give you the link down below. I don't want to spoil the cover reveal. You can go over to his video for all of that, but I want to talk to you about how I wrote my story, and effectively in this video, I'm giving you my title reveal as well. I thought you might like to hear the story behind my story. Back in April or May, I was sitting around coming up with ideas for stories that I wanted to write, various real-world mystery stories, sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, and as the ideas came into my head, most of the ideas that I was getting in my head were horror stories. And for this specific publication, the prompt was stories for characters who are not at home. You know, the title, We're Not Home. Characters who are off on vacation or traveling or something to that effect. And I didn't just go into my folders in the computer and dust off an old story to submit. I wrote a whole new story for this. One of the ideas that I had come up with was looking at my copy of House of Leaves and looking at my copy of Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman, just having those two books in proximity to one another. Something happened in my brain and I combined them together and I thought, oh, House of Leaves of Grass. And I was very amused by my cleverness with the words. And I thought I could write a story that would be about the House of Leaves of Grass. It could be about this place where the owner ran it as a hotel or bed and breakfast, and he claimed that Walt Whitman had stayed there back in the 1800s, and that was part of where he wrote Leaves of Grass with his poetry. I had this really exciting concept in my mind about a haunted house ghost story that has Walt Whitman, the ghost of Walt Whitman, haunting people. And for some reason, I thought that could be really amusing, really a lot of fun to play with. The idea of House of Leaves, where you have a house that keeps changing and has weird elements to it. And the idea of Walt Whitman being this poet ghost who went around reciting poetry and showing up in the mirror and playing crazy tricks on people. So that was where my idea started, and then it morphed in my mind because I didn't know how I was going to write that. And I let it sit in my brain for a while. I let it percolate as thoughts. And finally, one day, I had a breakthrough since I wasn't able to actually type out the story for a while. And the breakthrough that I had made all the difference in the world. I realized that there was another variable, another element that I really needed for the story in order for it to work. And I can't tell you exactly what that variable is because of spoilers, but that's what clicked in my brain, made me shift the ideas around some, and I was able to sit at the computer and in one day I typed out 8,000 words. And by the way, the word limit for this one was 8,000 words. So very much I was into the story, I was having a lot of fun with the characters, and I realized I'm at the word limit. I'm gonna have to stop. The story's going to have to end. I know some people define a short story as at most being 7,500 words. Other people extend it out to 10,000 words. I was glad that for this publication, I was able to write 8,000 words. After I wrote my initial draft of the story, you know, that's a zero draft, I then was able to print it out, read over it, make changes to it, and then have my first real draft of it. And I call my first beta reader an alpha reader just because I like using words the way that logically they make sense. Like, it makes sense to me to have an alpha before you get to a beta. So I have an alpha reader I gave the story to. That person was able to read through it, tell me things that seemed off, things that were questionable, things that maybe should be changed. And I appreciate that kind of feedback. I took it in. One of the issues that my alpha reader had was, my alpha reader said the ending felt like it came out of nowhere, completely unpredictable, no foreshadowing, you know, and I was like, oh, well, I did a really good job with the red herrings and distractions, but I guess I need to try and at least make it something that people could guess and figure out. So when I revised it to send out to 2 more readers as actual beta readers, I put in a lot of foreshadowing and clues, and really I overdid it at that point. And I'm really lucky that I had these 2 beta readers in my life because I was able to send the revised story out to them, and they each made comments on it and also were willing to have a phone call with me, which amounted to about an hour-long phone call with each of them separately. And that made all the difference in the world. Not only did I have, comments for the story itself, but we were able to talk through what they liked and didn't like about the story, and for my purpose of what I was trying to accomplish in the different scenes, whether or not that came across. It's awesome to have beta readers who will have those kind of conversations with you and go through that. One of my beta readers was really good at asking me targeted questions about the theme, because that draft of the story had way too many issues, as in like political issues and societal issues, that I just threw in there. I was just like, let's throw this in. Let's throw in this idea. And of course, that was distracting. Instead of just focusing on one main thematic issue throughout the story. It's a short story. I couldn't deal with that many issues. I was just mentioning them. And granted, a little bit of that was for the sake of red herring purposes throughout the story. My ability as an author to just, casually mention some things that might be important later, but might not be, and you're not sure as a reader. But there were definitely others that were just extra things that you didn't need to think about while you were reading my story. So that helped me a lot to cut things down more as I went to revise the story once again. And at that point, I had feedback from two people who'd read the same version of the story, and it was really funny that they disagreed on some things. This is where my actual title of the story comes into play. My working title had been House of Leaves of Grass, or The House of Leaves of Grass, and 2 out of 3 of those readers did not like that title because of the word "of" being in there twice. The House of Leaves of Grass. Also, I realized those readers were not familiar with the book House of Leaves. They hadn't read it, and they hadn't read the poetry of Walt Whitman, so they weren't familiar with Leaves of Grass. So my hilarious wordplay meant nothing to them. As a title, they just thought it was a weird title. Though it makes sense as a title because there's a place in the story called The House of Leaves of Grass. My other beta reader loved the title, but she's read House of Leaves. She's familiar with Walt Whitman, at least on a surface level. So my beta readers en masse convinced me to use the title of, and here's my title reveal, The Ghost of Walt Whitman. I'm so proud to tell you that's my short story that's going to be in the collection, The Ghost of Walt Whitman. At this point, as I revised it from all that feedback, I also used something that I am not at all sponsored by, but I'm happy to tell you as a writer is very useful, and that is Pro Writing Aid. You can use it for free for up to 500 words, or you can pay a monthly subscription, an annual subscription, or a lifetime subscription, and I am in no way affiliated with them other than I went ahead and did a year's subscription so that I could generate all those reports and see ways to improve my writing. I spent so much time revising that story, refocusing the theme. When I cut out the elements that I really didn't need in the story, it gave me the room with the word count to add in more description, more horrifying, suspenseful kind of elements to make the story more fun, and also to make the ending, I think, better. At that point, I went on Fiverr. I had a professional reviewer on Fiverr that I paid. I sent the really super revised, fixed version of the story out, and I was really happy with the feedback from the professional reviewer because I knew it was someone who didn't know me personally in life. There was no reason for that person to be holding back. I accepted that could be brutal honesty and criticism, though I'd already got some really honest criticism from my beta readers, which was what really helped me to fix the story and make it better. But my Fiverr reviewer absolutely loved the story, really liked the characters, said that they seemed realistic, liked the plot elements and the way that it was developed. I was happy to get a few suggestions with a lot of positive feedback that showed that what I was trying to do with my revisions actually worked the way that I had edited the story. And then, of course, I took the feedback from the Fiverr reviewer and I changed the story up once again. One of my beta readers had told me once I had a real finished version that I was going to submit to go ahead and let that reader read it again and give me final comments. And I was glad to have a beta reader willing to look at it once again. So I did that, and that was a really fun discussion because that was the most critical beta reader of all. And to have that person tell me, yes, you have addressed every single issue I had with the story, you have fixed it in a way that I think is good, makes it more interesting, makes it flow better, I was really happy to get that feedback. I hope that when the anthology comes out, We're Not Home, and you read my story, The Ghost of Walt Whitman, that you'll enjoy the story. Hopefully you'll be entertained. Hopefully it'll really work for you as a horror story. You may be asking, when does that anthology come out? You can go over to Cam Wolfe's channel. He's saying it should be around the end of October to early November. Meanwhile, I am continuing my challenge to myself to submit at least one short story a month. I figured that would be a good idea for the rest of the year at least. I've been submitting at least one short story a month, May, June, July, and August. In August, I actually went ahead and submitted 2 because I had a rejection from July that I was then able to fix. I was able to revise the story, make it better, and that gave me 2 submissions to send out for August. And I guess if I get rejections from those, I'll be able to revise them and then potentially have 3 that I send out in September, October, November, who knows. But I think it's a lot of fun writing the stories and trying to get them published. I hope that if you are a writer, that this video has helped you, inspired you in some way. Feel free to ask whatever questions you want down in the comments below. I love interacting with the community. Every day is a good day for a writing video or a book talk. Peace.